I've kept a detailed budget for over 14 years now, and I've coached over 1,000 clients on building budgets for themselves. And yet, it can be tough to balance being rigid enough on the one hand to hit your goals, while also being flexible enough on the other to deal with life surprises. And of course, I'm also not immune to all of the fun things that are constantly tempting us to blow our budgets. Well, my wife Hannah and I, along with our clients, have started to make some major headway in this area by implementing a simple two-step solution I like to call the Timeframe Method. In this life, we get 3 resources: time, energy, and money. And all 3 of those resources are limited, which means that every time we spend one of those resources on something, we are inherently saying no to being able to spend it on something else. This is known in the investment world as opportunity cost, which is the loss of a potential gain from other alternatives when one alternative is chosen. Basically, this first step is about growing an awareness that every time we say yes to something, we are actively saying no to something else. The key is to try and start saying that no ahead of time rather than trying to deal with it after the fact. That brings us to step number 2. In the heat of the moment, a lot of us will say yes to something like a last minute weekend trip that we get invited to with our best friends and ultimately end up saying no to our retirement or emergency fund contribution to then cover the overspending from the trip. And honestly, that's okay sometimes as long as it's done consciously. But then what happens when that trip is followed up by an anniversary you forgot about the next month? And then maybe your kids' extracurricular activities end up costing a few $100s more than you had originally planned. And then the water heater goes out, and then a health crisis happens, and it's one thing after another after another. If we're not careful, we can fall into a pattern where short and medium term wants and needs end up taking precedence over the long term. This is how people can budget or track their money for years and never end up actually making any progress. The solution for us has been developing a compelling vision for our life that includes medium and long-term things that are just as desirable as the short-term stuff, if not more so, which means that if we can't cover some sort of short-term impulse thing that we want to do now with other short-term stuff, we don't do it because we don't want to jeopardize the medium and long-term stuff that we're really jazzed up for. Yes, it's a bummer in the moment that we don't get to do the short-term thing, but ultimately we're able to still remain excited and disciplined because we want the medium and long-term stuff. So I want you to think about your budget being broken up into 3 different sections. You've got short, medium, and long-term. Now, the short-term stuff is exactly what it sounds like. Groceries, gas, eating out, pet expenses, a utility bill that came in a little bit higher or a little bit lower, discretionary kid expenses, fun spending, as well as clothing. It's all the stuff that's happening today or in the next couple of weeks. Next, you have the medium-term stuff. This is going to be anything that is more than a few weeks away, all the way up to about 18 months. And so this includes irregular items like birthday gifts and holidays, as well as vacations. It could also include one-time annual expenses like insurance premiums or property taxes. And it also includes saving for kind of the stuff that could throw us off, but we can reasonably expect, like auto maintenance, home maintenance, and medical bills. The long-term bucket is anything that's going to be beyond that 18-month window. You're normally not going to have a ton of things in your budget that fall into this. Right now, we have 3. We have our retirement contributions, saving for a down payment on a home, and a car replacement fund. I do want to mention that when I set this up for clients, if you are working on a debt pay down journey right now and you're actively paying that down, I would also mentally include that as part of your long-term bucket. Yes, technically you contribute to retirement accounts or pay down debt on a monthly basis, but the benefit of those things are really long-term wealth building in nature. And so for the purposes of this sort of time frame method, I bucket those into that long-term section. What this means in practice is that if we've already blown through our eating out budget for the month and we still want to go out for Mexican, we aren't allowed to pull from the car savings or the retirement contributions or the Christmas savings because those are all medium and long-term items. We would need to look at some of the other short-term items and decide what trade-off we want to make so that then we could go out for Mexican. And this also means that I can't pull from my most recent paycheck or the paycheck that I think I'm going to get tomorrow. In YNAB, this money goes into ready to assign, and the goal is to use that money for future spending. My eventual goal is to get to a place where I want all of your money that is coming in the current month to actually get allocated for the next month, which means you're not using any of the paycheck for this month's spending. So you're not allowed to pull from ready to assign either. Let me practically show you what this looks like in YNAB. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to go ahead and create a view. Now in YNAB, a view is just a way for us to create sort of a subset of categories or group them together with a different perspective than just the way they are by default. I'm going to click New View here, and I'm going to call it Short. And I'm going to go through and I'm going to select anything that is a short-term expense. That means all of my monthly bills are going to go in here. Now, not my debt stuff, again, because I think about that being long-term. All of this short-term fund spending stuff, all of this grocery stuff. Obviously, your short-term group is going to be the biggest because it's the stuff that happens all the time. All right, all of those are medium. All of that's longer term or medium stuff. And I'm going to hit save. Great. Now I'm going to come and create a view for the medium. This is going to be really just down here: home maintenance, auto maintenance, life insurance, annual subscriptions, gifts, Christmas spending, small trips, family for Thanksgiving, winter cabin trip, and that's pretty much it. All right, and then let's do the long term. So long term is going to be all my debt, and then it's going to be emergency fund, medical emergency, maybe a kitchen renovation if that's like more than 18 months out, and there we go. All right. And now if I wanted to, I could even move these around. So back to the example of eating out. Let's say that I go to the Waffle House and I spend a whole bunch of money at the Waffle House, more than I've ever spent at the Waffle House. And now all of a sudden I am overspent. Well, I could click this right here and cover that overspending with visiting family for Thanksgiving or an annual YNAB subscription. But both of those are kind of medium things, and I really don't want to touch those. And so what I might even do is just come in here, and instead of looking at all of my stuff, I might just click on my short-term group. So then I can just focus on where do I have money that I'm willing to take from to deal with the overspending on the eating out. And so in this case, maybe I decide, you know what, I'm going to take it from our date night coffee shop. So I'm going to click here, take that from the coffee shop, and there we go. Now I've traded one short-term thing for another short-term thing, and that makes sure that I'm not going to ultimately hinder some of the bigger long-term goals that I have. That being said, the other example I want to show you is I will sometimes take from short-term things to fund medium or long-term things. So for example, a couple of weeks ago, Hanna and I were on a camping trip. You may have even seen some videos that we filmed while we were there. And if I come down and I wanted to look at my camping category, where's it at? Let's go to small trips. Here we go. So we were on this camping trip, and ultimately we decided, you know what, we're really having a good time. Internet access is good. We could still work from here for a couple more days. Why don't we extend the trip? And so we looked at our budget, and this is exactly what we found. We had no money available to extend the trip. We had already spent all of our camping money on that particular trip. We had no other money in the budget to just pay for a few more days at the campground. And so we had to have a conversation. So, okay, well, where are we willing to take from in order to fund this? And this, in our minds, is a medium expense, right? These kind of trips are medium. And so what I could do in this scenario is I could look and take from other medium line items. But you'll notice that in this example, I don't even have any money in other medium line items. I've already spent all of that too. So in this case, what I could do is I could take from short to cover medium. The point here is I can use the shorter time frame stuff to cover longer out stuff, but I won't go the other direction. So I can use short to cover medium or medium to cover long, but I will never use long to cover anything else. In this example, maybe I come down here to the short-term expenses and I say, all right, well, a couple more nights at the campground, $50 a night. We just need to come up with another $100, $150 if we want to stay 3 nights. So we decide, okay, let's take our entertainment money. Let's move that to small trips. Let's take the rest of our date night coffee shop money. We'll just hang out at the campground. We don't have to go anywhere. That gets us to 50. And then let's take the rest of our home furnishings money. And there we go. And now all of a sudden, in our small trips category, we've got $150. We can book a few more nights at the campground and be good to go. This time frame method only works if you're really excited and compelled by the medium and long-term things. Meaning, if you have medium and long-term goals that are ultimately just not that exciting to you and not that interesting, then you will constantly take from the medium and long-term things to cover the short-term stuff that you want here and now. This is where the vision comes into play. I'll link to a couple of videos down below where we've talked extensively extensively about vision in the past, as well as Hanna and I are about to put out a 4-part series on visioning with your spouse, visioning as a couple, and how to take that vision and build a budget around it. If that sounds interesting to you, definitely hit the subscribe button so that you'll know exactly when those videos are released. Be sure to check out this video right here where I go in depth on 3 key steps you need to budgeting like a pro, and actually show you a lot more in depth in this video on how to take the vision and work it into the budget so that you can make the vision a reality. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.